Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Create Your Own Nancy Drew Game podcast. This week we're getting hecka chaotic because I am joined by...
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were going to say my name or not. Hi, it's Maddy, aka Professor Hotchkissesta on Tumblr.
Yay, we are already off to a chaotic start and I love it.
Sorry, I let you
just
just sit there in silence for a bit.
No, it's fine. I'm gonna keep that because I think it's funny. So Maddy is really busy like me with TA duties, correct? I mean, I'm not a TA, but...
Teaching, not actually TAing.
Oh, you're an actual teacher. Wow.
No, not debatable. I am teaching though. I'm teaching.
So you are teaching, but you wouldn't label yourself a teacher.
Well, I mean, I guess from that definition of like someone who teaches, yes, I'm a teacher. Am I a certified teacher who's like has the experience to be doing what I'm doing? Absolutely not.
Well, debatable.
Debatable. For legal reasons. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, for legal reasons, we cannot disclose where Maddy teaches. But she is a teacher, and I am about to be a grad student, so we are just, full of chaotic school energy vibes. Either way. So, Maddy, how long have you been playing the Nancy Drew games?
Let's see. I think I was trying to think back on this. I think I first started in 4th grade. My best friend at the time actually had to try to like get me into playing them. She was trying to convince me to play a game because she had gotten a duplicate copy of Treasure in Royal Tower and the final scene for her birthday. And so she wanted to give it to me so that we could play it together. And I remember that she had to like convince me. And I was like, I don't know if it's something I'd be into because Nancy Drew was like my mom's thing. Like that was what she grew up reading. And she has all the like yellow back books and those like the classic covers that you kind of picture. And so I was always like, yeah, that's more my mom's thing. And my friend had to be like, no, it's just like the Trixie Belden books that I was reading at the time. And so that's how I was like, oh, well, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I really like those books. And so we used to play it. We would be on the landline and talking to each other while we each had the game pulled up on our computers, and we would work through the games that way. And we would get like so freaked out. And like, that's how I grew up playing them originally. And then, I did that all through like 4th through 6th grade. And then like, I just continued to like play them for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I feel like that one of the best things about this series being a video game series is that, the older generation of people will know the books, but the newer generation of people who maybe are like, I hate reading, will play the games and get kind of a more modern and general experience, So like, you were saying like, the books were your mom's thing. Well, then the games are now your thing. So it's like, you're kind of, the games give people like a little new generation to experience the story.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's this book series. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called Sammy Keys. Do you know what Sammy Keys is?
No, I've never heard of it.
So if anybody's listening has heard of the Sammy Keys books, those were like my growing up girl detective books. Like I didn't really read the indie books, but I played the games, but I didn't really read the books just because for some reason I just couldn't get into them. I don't know why. Like I found myself reading like the modern ones more than the old ones. But like this is kind of merging into my next question, which is, have you read the books? But like either way, some of the books just bore me. And I'm not generally like that with books. It's just some of the Nancy Drew books just kind of bore me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I do think they're very formulaic. Like they kind of all follow. There's something introduced, and then she thinks she knows what's happening. Then she's either knocked out or kidnapped, and then the mystery gets solved. I feel like that was the big plot structure for a lot of the game.
Yeah, about to say you could also argue the games follow kind of the similar. There's nothing really new they can do at this point because we've seen it all kind of thing. Except they can create a game like Midnight in Salem. That's something that we've never seen before. So,
yeah.
So
Some
what
of
is?
us still haven't seen it because of the graphic.
Yeah,
It's fine. Sorry.
absolutely. You could literally just like look up a transcript and you would be fine because it's all dialogue. What is your favorite game?
So I always say my favorite is Treasure and Royal Tower, and it's just because of the nostalgic reasons. That's the first game I ever played, and like I just associate it so much of like being on my desktop with my friend like on the phone and us like panicking. I like we're sneaking into the library and I was freaking out because I was like we're gonna get caught and in trouble, and like my heart was pounding, and I just was so invested in it. And like I just love all the characters in that game, and it has like such a wave of nostalgia for me. But recently, honestly, lately when I've been replaying them, I think it might, if I was not considering the nostalgia factor, it probably is actually Shadow at the Water's Edge, because
Ooh,
of
yeah.
course I love a good nonogram. And I just think it's so well done. Like I think that game is just like all around very well done, other than the horrific accents.
Yeah, but gosh, that is how you do a story. That
Yes.
story is see, on terms of the puzzles, I disagree. I hate the puzzles in that game, but the story like draws me to that game again just because it is so beautifully tragic that
Mm-hmm.
it's like Ghost of Thornton Hall. Like those both of those stories are probably I think the two strongest stories in the games. I'm not necessarily saying they're the strongest games, but they're the strongest I feel like storylines in the games. Just because of like the backstory and like that everybody kind of knows this one thing that like Nancy doesn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
about like somebody dying. It's just so good. And
Mm-hmm.
I just because that freaking Master Sudoku puzzle takes me an hour and I hate it. Um,
It's so funny because sometimes when I see that post and everyone's like, that one game that you want to play, and then you get to the puzzle and you're
and you're
like,
like, no,
why?
yeah,
And I'm the opposite. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I just want to play that Master Sudoku puzzle, but I don't want to have to go through all of Takai's dialogue to get to that Master Sudoku.
yeah,
I love all the puzzles in that game, and I love the storyline, and I just think it's a really tight story. Like I think
it
everything
is.
fits and it's all well constructed, and I think all the aspects of it, from like characters to dialogue other than Takai, to puzzles, to like overall game structure, is just really well done.
Absolutely. That and Ghost of Thornton Hall are just so similar and equally. Ugh. So have you seen a Nancy Drew movie or a TV show or any other kind of external material that is not the games or the books?
Yeah, I've definitely watched the Emma Roberts. I've actually watched pretty much any time a movie has come out. I've like watched it. I feel like Emma Roberts one I've watched several times.
Did you see the Sophia Lillis one? I think it was The Hidden Staircase. It just came out.
Yes, that I watched it on an airplane when it was free.
Oh no.
So I wasn't gonna go out of my way to like see it anywhere, although I might have, but it wasn't like shown widely back when movie theaters were
Yeah.
a thing. But I did see it on an airplane. It wasn't great, but I always kind of view it like you mentioned. It's like every variation of Nancy Drew, I'm always like, it's just another way to bring in a different set of viewers and like people who can appreciate this character. So I never feel like I never want to put any version down. It's just a different one. Like it's a different telling. They kind of remind me of Greek myths almost in that sense. Like that's the kind of character she is, where you can kind of adapt her into different settings, and all of them are still equally valid, and there's going to be an audience for each one.
Right. Uh-huh. Which brings us to the TV show, which is more or less for Riverdale fans, and um, which I haven't seen, so I'm just kind of pretty much basing this off the fact that it's a CW show. But it seems really like for Riverdale loving teens and like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I don't know. I pulled my teeth on, or not pulled my teeth. That's not the expression.
why would you do
Held,
that?
dragged my feet. That's it. There we go. Sorry, we've hit my bedtime. So my brain is not working. Dragged my feet
It's
on that one, and I only watched it because a group of friends were like, "No, I promise you, like you'll really like it." And I had tried to watch the first few episodes, but I was really upset that it was supernatural based, because for me, like, that's not, like, in my head, that's not like what Nancy Drew is about. It's like
It's not like who done it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a logical explanation for things. But I made it through the first season, and I will say I did not enjoy it probably until the halfway point, but I loved watching it with my friends, so they made it for me. I got halfway, and then I got really sucked in. And I've actually, the second season, I've been watching it on a weekly basis, and I really do enjoy it. I think it's fun. It's definitely a different, like, it's not my favorite version of Nancy Drew in any means, but I still think it's really worth watching, and I do think, like the characters are well done, and, like, there's little things to love about them. Like, I love the character they have playing Ned on there. Like, he just does it. He's so wholesome, and he's so Ned-like in all of the aspects, like, of his personality fit so well.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because all I've seen is the first episode, and they made it seem like he was going to be like the bad guy. So I don't know.
Yes, I agree with, like I said, I think they're kind of finding their footing in the beginning, but like, he literally in every episode is, like, just caring about his friends and wanting to do the best for them, and, like, going out of his way to make everybody feel comfortable and, like, appreciated and loved, and it's just, wow, like, such Ned vibes.
Yeah. Scott Hardy is my Ned, though, all the way. And then my last kind of icebreaker question is, what other fandoms do you like? What are your outside Nancy Drew stands, if you have any?
Okay, well, I was gonna say, the most time, like, this is the first time I've ever been, like, active in a fandom. But that being said, my, like, big one in high school was Percy Jackson. Like, I was a huge Percy Jackson fan.
I did too. I loved it as well.
Oh, they were my favorite things. And, like, reading his like, Rick Riordan's the second series that he did, like, so the Heroes of Olympus, like, that was my first time, I feel like, reading a piece of media with a group of people, like, where I wasn't in the fandom, but I was on Pinterest, and so I would see, like, the fan arts and the theories being reblogged, and it was, like, such this awesome community experience that, like, I think that series is always going to have, like, a special place in my heart because of it.
Yes, and gosh, the movies had so much potential, and then they just kind of, like, stopped making them.
Although they are making a TV series show. Good. Like, Disney Plus is right now in the process, and they're working with Rick Riordan to make it happen. So I'm nervous, but I am hesitantly excited.
I don't know, but I really enjoyed Logan Lerman as Percy, and just I watched the first movie, like, religiously. Not the second one as much, but the first one I watched religiously, and I read the first couple, like the first, like, 3 books religiously too. I've read them all, but, like, the first 3 books were, like, the ones that I always read.
Listen, here's the thing: the second movie is horrible, but it is prime. I feel this way about the second Percy Jackson movie and also the Twilight movies. They are perfect to watch at, like, 3 a.m. when you are ridiculously slap happy and sleep deprived, and you just, like, roast it, like, just with a group of friends. And just, like, mock it. It's a top tier experience. Really recommend. Like, especially the why are you walking, like, why are you on my roof? Get off the roof line.
Right.
So good.
Yeah. Oh. Anyway. Let's get off Percy Jackson's soapbox and into your game that you created for this podcast. Let's first talk about the central mystery and plot. What is the main mystery that she's trying to solve? How did she stumble across it? If it's, like, maybe based off of another source material, go ahead and explain what that might be. And just give us the tea.
Okay. So when you first said this, I kind of thought, like, I was like, my immediate reaction for wanting to create a game was, if I am going to make this game that is probably never going to come into fruition in any way or shape, I'm just going to make it super self-indulgent. So my premise is that Nancy has been asked by someone, maybe it's someone that she knows, or it's just she gets a letter from someone who runs a mystery convention, so like a con. And they've asked her to speak as like her experiences as like a well-known amateur detective. And so she is going to this convention, and on her way there, she's kind of like running behind. So she gets there not when it opens, and she goes to like collect her pass. And so she goes in, and she gets there, and the person that sent her the letter is not there. So that's like the head of the convention, and he's nowhere to be found. The only person there is this like stressed out intern who is like his second in command, who says like, I don't know where he is. Earlier in his office, we think he's been kidnapped, but we don't want us to like mystery fanatics, and like it'll all like hit the fan if this gets out, and like I need this to go smoothly while also tracking down this guy. Will you help me? So that's kind of like the center.
Nice. So we're kind of like at MysteryCon.
Exactly. Yes.
Or is it happening in like a big city, or?
I feel like Orlando type places where like you hear about, or Chicago, like where these things called near Nancy-ish area. Because my other, but as avid.
I am this semester, so yay.
Yes.
So I know this sounds like primarily it's an indoor mystery, but I would still like to know like what time of the year do you see this happening in?
I honestly feel like it has to be summer, just because that's when
Summer.
it happens. Like these kinds of things happen.
Yeah, we have I'm in North Carolina, and in Raleigh we have GalaxyCon every summer, which is where people from like Doctor Who come, and like freaking Tim Curry's made an appearance there before. Like just people like, but that's like the major summer thing. But is Comic-Con during the summer?
Yes, it used to be. I think I've heard about it. I could be wrong. I don't really know anything about Comic-Con. I said that with a lot of a lot of authority, but I really have no idea what I'm talking about. I feel like it is. Also, every time you talk about the fact that you're like near Raleigh, North Carolina, I'm like, Austin, if I had met you like literally 2 years ago, we could have hung out. Because that's
I've never been to Raleigh. Raleigh is like an hour for me.
Okay.
I know that we have that in Raleigh. Like our state has that.
Yeah, I think I accidentally on the way to see Newsies over the summer at the Raleigh Theater. That con was happening, and so I walked past everybody.
Oh my gosh, my friend was in Newsies at North Carolina Theater.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, because it was a lot of local people, so I saw them.
Well, that theater's yes and no. Like it's equity, so like they pull a lot of people from like, but like they also
have brought. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So my friend was like one of the people cast from the auditions, not from like the you're coming to do this show in North Carolina because you're equity kind of thing. But they do a lot. They did Mamma Mia a couple of years ago, and oh my god, it was so good.
Yes.
But that's just Mamma Mia is very enjoyable after a couple of martinis. But anyway, yes, this could be as big as like Comic-Con or GalaxyCon if we're really trying to make it so. But anyway, so I guess now we can talk about your characters, and if you have stuff like orientations and genders, and if any of them are related to each other or what they're doing there, go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, okay. So, the first one I've already kind of mentioned is our stressed out intern who is working in events, which I have been told is like the most stressed out profession, and he just wants everything to run smoothly. I picture him as like a college student who
Absolutely.
might be interested in like maybe criminology, and this is something that he does as like a side gig. But he's been working like religiously all year to get this planned, along with like the CEO of the company. And now the said CEO has disappeared, and he's just like frazzled. But you know, as a stressed out intern, there's maybe he like might have orchestrated this. Like that's kind of your suspicion, because it's like, well, are you really as stressed out as you seem to be on that? Kind of a vibe. So he is kind of who you interact with. And as far as gameplay goes, I kind of envision him as, from Nancy's perspective, he's kind of asking Nancy for help along the way to make sure that the thing is running smoothly. So he's who you like check in with all the time while you're there.
Yeah, too bad it's a guy, because otherwise I would name it Maddy. But yeah, so he totally is the stereotypical intern that's kind of having an identity crisis, like, why did I choose this internship? Why did I choose this career path? kind of thing, which I can imagine that, like, planning, just being on any kind of like internship committee at a con like this would be hard, because you're gonna have to like block the doors because people like freaking David Tennant are gonna be in like some room, and you're gonna have to like block the public from seeing David Tennant and stuff like that. So it's like it's really hard. So I could see it being very difficult to do. Gosh, I feel like he's given me vibes that his name is like Cody or something like that.
I could see Cody. That would
You
work.
want to do Cody? Let's do Cody.
Okay.
So Cody is the intern. So intern Cody.
Yes, he's just trying to keep things together,
Yeah.
and it's not going well for him. And then, okay, as far as kind of gameplay goes, I envision that like you have kind of your initial dialogue with him, and like he's kind of confused on who you are, and then you kind of explain, and he's like, okay, wait, awesome, you can be my person that like can maybe help me figure this out while I'm also working with the con stuff at the same time. Like you're my go-to mystery person. And then
Right.
Nancy also, so he gives her a like backstage like pass, like a panelist pass, so that she's kind of separated from like the main group of people out in the hallway, which is why it's kind of like more deserted, I guess, where she's venturing around. And then she also, like I said, the Hardy Boys are there, who she runs into them. My headcanon is that Frank is in full Sherlock Holmes garb cosplay.
Yes.
Like he is just fully nerded out, and he is so embarrassed that he's been caught, like peak nerd.
Yes.
When he runs into Nancy, and Joe is also there and refuses to take part in Frank's cosplay, and so keeps referring to Frank as Watson, which really irritates.
Oh my gosh. We talked about in the circus episode them being dressed like clowns at the circus. And just like how chaotic that would be. So I can imagine like just them being dressed up as anything would be major chaotic.
But so Nancy's super excited that they are there to like help, even though Frank is like flustered the whole time kind of about being caught and his like peak nerdiness. And so they kind of are at the con like as like participants, so they kind of scope you can switch between characters, and they kind of scope like as participants at the con, and then Nancy is like more invested with the people who are like behind the scenes panelists and other activity people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Nancy
those people are
yeah, so Nancy would interact with the intern, and then the other person that she also would interact with is one of like the panelists, the people that have been invited as like a celebrity guest. And this is this like very arrogant dude who's like really into like unsolved mysteries, like true crime, and he runs a podcast on like unsolved mysteries, where he like pretends to solve them, or like he acts like he solved them, and he just thinks like he is the like smartest person ever.
So like Tino Bauducci's brother, pretty much.
Yes, exactly. I actually, when I was putting this together, I was like, could this just be Tino?
Yeah, exactly. There's not much difference.
Yes, other than I feel like Tino is very full. Like this guy is more like pretentious. Tino is more like New Yorker cop vibe.
Right.
Whereas I imagine this person is more like elitist, I'm smarter than you type vibe, which is still kind of similar.
Yeah. So this dude like legit like just creates podcasts of him like solving the freaking John Benet Ramsey murder case.
Yeah, he'll be like, I actually know what happened to DB Cooper.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
My actual dream game, you probably saw it, but it's Nancy and on a cruise with a bunch of like famous writers, and like Charlene Purcell invited her, and one of my characters actually was a true crime novelist, and he kept writing books on this fictional serial killer named Chester, and he actually was the culprit because he wanted to create like a perfect kind of like true crime mystery that Nancy couldn't solve.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like just kind of a little like side plot, but that kind of, he's giving me the same kind of like vibes that your character has, just because my character was also really arrogant and like felt like because he knew so much about this one serial killer, like he knew about like everybody out there, and so that was kind of fun. But anyway, so this guy is super Chino Balducci and solves real life mysteries on his own podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He's got like a Twitter army of followers
who were like, "Oh, you're the greatest thing," which doesn't help his ego at all. Are you thinking he's like older or younger?
I guess I'm thinking like mid-late 20s.
Okay, so I'm literally doing a Google search right now, douchebag names.
I love that for you.
So Trent's a good name.
Trent.
Chad, Brad, Trent, Chris, Brandon.
Ooh, Chad Bradley.
Chad Bradley. Yes, the most white boy ignorant name there could ever be. Chad Bradley. Yes. Okay, so this is Chad Bradley, the podcaster.
Yes. He's got his Twitter army are the Chadsters, or something equally as horrifying.
Yeah,
like, that's so uninventive.
Yes.
Yes, and it's kind of, I love that you were talking about your ideal game, because that's kind of where I want to get the like vibes of, ooh, is he the culprit? Because maybe he has maybe staged this kidnapping so that he can solve it, and like, boost his reputation of like, look, I actually can solve mysteries. I'm not just like making stuff up on my podcast.
Yeah, because my cruise game was also like a little girl gets abducted, and it's like similar circumstances to like the legend of this cruise ship, which was that there was like a little girl that drowned at sea, and so like, and she was also abducted by the but like the captain was the one that abducted this first girl and did it. So like he like kidnaps this other young girl when Nancy's on the cruise, and like tries to like give her the perfect mystery that she can't solve. Like he just tries to stump her pretty much. And anyway, yeah, so that's a thing. But Chad Bradley in the house.
Yes. I also, at some point during the game, when like Nancy's trying to keep it really hush hush, he when he finds out that this is happening behind the scenes, leaks the story to his Twitter fan base, and so that's how you kind of end up with like conflict of everyone knowing that this is going on, and you get some unintentional solicited advice from random con goers.
Right.
Okay. And so then on the other side of like not in like the backstage panelist area, but my favorite character that I have thought of is we have someone who like heard the scuffle, and so we think is a witness to the scene.
Oh wow.
But they are a diehard cosplayer and refuse to break character.
Oh my gosh. Like kind of like Thanos in Labyrinth of Lies.
Yes. So they keep changing outfits and like who they are, and every time Frank and Joe talk to them, they are someone different.
Oh my gosh.
And adapt like over ridiculous like mannerism.
Yeah, and they're probably like they're always in the same place, so you know that it's that character, but like they're just wearing different clothes and like
Yes.
it's like you know that's who it is because they're at the same place they've always been, but they're just like totally now they're wearing a blue wig and like they're oh wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. Sunny June would love this person.
Yes, probably. And they can be all kinds of different characters. Like like the Shadow of Water's Edge like comic that you see where it's like there's like creepy ghost story comic. He could be the ghost if those comics were like really popular. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, oh yeah, the one that you get from the pachinko parlor.
Yeah, from the pachinko parlor. He could be like one of those people from that.
Yeah, it would be really, really funny if just like this they dress as like this other random integer character, which that would also kind of be shady because it would be like, well, how does this character know that this other character exists? You know what I'm saying?
But so you know that headcanon that someone has about after Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon that Charlena Purcell writes a romance novel and the characters are clearly ripoffs of Frank and Nancy and their detectives. Yeah. They could also dress up like rip-off very popular detective Charlena Purcell versions of Frank or Nancy.
Yes.
Yes. And so like you're talking like you could have like you could be playing as Frank and then be talking to someone in like this oversized like puffy vest who's like being really serious and like kind of emo, and it's like a really dramatized version of Frank, for like romance novel version of Frank from Charlena Purcell's novel.
I know, and he has like long like Fabian hair and
yes.
like washboard abs, and I mean, we're not. Who says it doesn't already have washboard abs anyway? But that was a little bit of my but yeah. But if there was one character that's not like Frank, Joe, or Nancy that you would want to see that this person dressed like, who would it be from any game ever?
I don't know. Because I wanted to be kind of costumey, so I was actually bouncing ideas from other people too, and Katie also recommended that he dress up like the Coco Kringle cow, which I also love.
Yes, do it. Oh my gosh.
Or the other one that they brought up was they could be Mystico the Magnificent from, Call Mystico and Prepare to be Amazed, where they're just shouting like fortune telling things at you the whole time, or like holding around a crystal ball and claiming to be able to predict your future. And so you'll be asking things like, what happened? And they'll be like, I see a scuffle and there's fog.
Where they dress up like Prudence Rutherford.
Yes. And like the bunny mask and like yes.
So this is kind of hard. I think that it would be funny if this character just keeps changing their name, so you never really like find out what their real name is until the end.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess their real name. It'd be funny if their real name was like a horrible name that they hate, so they are a cosplayer just so they can change their name up a little bit.
Yeah, or we just never know. Like we never know.
Yeah, like their name's a mystery because they keep changing their persona. I like that better. I like that. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, and then the last one is maybe someone who works at like a vendor stand or station. Or someone who works at like Sassy Detective magazine that's there to run a piece on the convention.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, are you seeing this person be like young, old, or what do you think?
I guess older, like a little bit older. Like
gotcha.
30s, 40s, I don't know.
And this is a female character?
Yeah, we'll say female. Sure. I feel like I said dudes for most of them, so yeah. I guess that would make sense for like if it's Sassy Detective magazine, because that's like the all girls detective tips and hotlines that we see throughout the games.
Yeah, I feel like she's giving me like Amelia vibes.
Ooh, I like that.
Amelia, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
So, are there any phone friends?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I want most. So yes, But I feel like they also exist. So I feel like you have to have Bess and George there that you can call just because like they're a given. But I also want Ned as a phone friend that you're calling, but he had also planned to meet Nancy there. So like you only really talk to him on the phone, but he is at the convention the whole time as well. And she is just too busy to like meet up with him the entire time.
Oh.
No. But here's my view on this is that Ned is having the time of his life at this convention.
Oh my god.
He is just like massive fanboying the entire time. Every time Nancy calls him to like update him on like the mystery and like what's happening, he like spouts out facts to her that like he's learned at like a panel or something, and it'll be like really obvious stuff. Like he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, Nancy, did you know that everyone has a unique fingerprint?" And she'll be like, "Yes, Ned, of course." I know this.
And that's kind of like on canon with the whole, Alibi and Ashes when he was like trying to do stuff, and like that one conversation they have, and I think it's Captive Curse when they have that fight and then they make up and he's like, I kind of want to be like indulge myself more into your interest by being a detective. That would just be so much on par with that whole conversation.
Yeah, like I just love the like honestly the Nancy vibes that you would get from that, even though like she has ditched him for a mystery, but like he's just so excited to be like in her world and also just thinking how like cool everything is. Like he's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that you do this. Like this is awesome. And then like just literally enjoying it. Like he gets like goes to the food court or something and like has funnel cake and he's like, they're magnifying glass shape. Like you're not gonna believe this. This is the best day ever.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Great. So is Ned the only one really that you want to?
I feel like he's like your big phone, but I feel like Bess and George are a given. Like they also have to be there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's more of like they're less important. It's more of like, you call them and they'll give you their classic tips.
Right. Cool. So the next section I have before we talk about like generally beginning to end the game, are there any puzzles that you created for this game that you want to share?
Oh, sorry, excuse me. So I kind of have like puzzles ideas of like how the game kind of work, kind of just not like super fleshed out, because if I was a person who had been trying to flesh them out, unfortunately my puzzle brain would have been like, we have to get this actually down until it's a puzzle that actually exists. So I tried to prevent myself from going down that rabbit hole, but instead I just kind of thought of places where puzzles could fit in while I was thinking through it. So like I said, from Nancy's perspective, I kind of figure while she's investigating, she's also getting tasks lists from the intern who's like frazzled the whole time, and anytime she like goes to talk to him, he's like, yes, but I need you to do something for me first. Kind of classic game vibe where he's like, listen, I don't have time unless you do X, Y, and Z. So that's where you kind of get some puzzles and things. So you can have things like he might say, I need you to arrange the seating arrangements, or like the setup for the meet and greet. So you're putting out what are those things called? The stanchions for like the poles with the things, and it's like you have to arrange them all. Stanchions? Is that the word?
Oh my gosh, I know
that's what they're called.
Yeah, they're stanchions, the little black poles that have like the like not a seatbelt, but it's kind of like the same material that a seatbelt is. Yes.
So you can have like a puzzle that way where you're organizing them so that there's enough like lines, like, and it would wrap all the people around, and so they all can meet like the quote unquote celebrity people in line, and then you have to like place them in the right order. There could also be kind of like a logic puzzle where you have to kind of like arrange or put together like I said, a panel like based on like who could be next to who based on like different drama that's happened in their lives.
Right.
Or you could be, if like you're connecting like the microphones to the speakers, it's like a wire puzzle of like which one goes where and like untangling the wires and stuff like that. And then on the convention floor, I also, because it's a mystery / like, you know, puzzle convention, there has to be a table where there is an ongoing competition to see who can solve puzzles the fastest. And of course, that's where you have your classic unlimited available Sudoku and Nonogram and Renogram puzzles. That are there as many games for you to participate in.
Yes, as a Shadow at the Water's Edge lover must have in a game.
Yes, exactly. And then if you want a mini game, you could also have like the intern be like, listen, one of our food vendors quit on us last minute. I need you to like run the stand during lunch hour. And so you could have like a whack style food mini game if you wanted to.
Yeah, and you know what I would love to see, just because it's so fitting for this convention, if there's like a little booth that you can play Difference Detective at.
Yes.
Because there are a bunch of detectives that are there anyway, so, and it's called Difference Detective, might as well have that game there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually, those puzzles are at the bane of my existence. I am horrible at spot the difference.
Oh my God. But still, like that's one, like her interactive is great about bringing like their mini games back, but that's one they really haven't, besides that one puzzle and Shattered Medallion, but like they haven't actually brought the actual Difference Detective game back yet. So
yeah, exactly. So I totally agree with you.
Cool. So now what we're going to do is kind of talk about the passage of time from the beginning of the game to the end. So kind of walk us through how you would play through the game and what happens, and for all of the plot devices you've created, kind of like, and then we'll stop at the end before we get into the corporate part.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. If you want to share about kind of the order you would do things in, what happens that is crucial that you've thought of.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, a lot of it I feel like is kind of designed to be somewhat nonlinear. Like you have all of these tasks that you have to do while you're investigating. I feel like I hit on several of like the points that happen, but so I guess so Nancy comes in, she hears like the whole story from the intern. He's kind of confused, like who she is or why she's there, and he's like, I'm sure I don't have all the paperwork. Here's your pass. I looked you up. You seem like you know what you're doing. I'm going to put you in charge. Why don't you go and like maybe talk to some people and see what you can figure out? I heard there was someone outside. I didn't get a glance at who they were. Maybe you should track them down first. And so Nancy like goes out to like into like the main floor. That's where she runs into the Hardy Boys. So that's like the initial interaction. They're like, oh my gosh, it's Nancy. And you have like the awkward her and Frank interaction, and Joe being very peak sibling energy with Frank the whole time and giving him a hard time about it. And then they kind of make the decision like, hey, why don't I have a pass? So I'll work backstage. You guys kind of work the floor and see if you can find anything, or if anyone like in the area might have seen something. So if you're so if you're playing as Nancy, then you would kind of like go backstage and start to interact with the characters back there. So you could talk to like the podcaster detective dude / the intern and kind of hear about him. You'd be like immediately off-put by your podcast dude, and you don't kind of want to let anything slip. You're just asking if he saw anything suspicious, but he kind of like immediately jumps on it and is like, oh, like something suspicious, like, oh, what's happening, there's a story there. But you kind of don't tell him right off the bat. Maybe at that stage you kind of call Ned and you're like, listen, I'm not going to be able to meet up with you before my panel, like some things have come up. Maybe you could keep an eye out. And again, like I said, Ned is just living his best life. He's like disappointed.
Yes, I will totally do this for you.
He's probably disappointed in the beginning, but he's like, okay, like I'll go around and see what's happening. And then like next time you check in on him, he's like, this is awesome, like best time ever. Whatever. Then on like the Hardy Boy side of things, they would interact with like so maybe as Nancy you're also then starting to run errands for the intern dude at the same time, kind of keeping things hush hush. Hardy Boy side, they are interacting with your cosplay dude and the sassy detective lady and kind of trying to piece out ways that they can get cosplay dude to reveal information to them, but it's just so hard because he's so committed to being in whatever character he is at the time. Like when he's the Coco Crango cow, it's just like moose, like there's just nothing else is coming. Like, that's it. And you're like, well, how do I work with this?
Yeah, like what's to be gained here?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
So that's kind of happening. Maybe on like Nancy's end of things, while she's trying to fix things up for the stressed intern, maybe something goes wrong and like she's missing like a wire or something for a puzzle. So she has to talk to podcasting dude who like might know something about, I don't know, like electrical and like or putting together a sound system because he does podcasting. So
right.
like he's like, well, I would know how to fix this microphone. But he's like, but I'm not going to tell you unless you tell me what's going on, like behind the scenes. So she's forced to kind of like admit what's happening. He's like, oh, interesting. And she's like, okay, that was weird. And then he helps her put the microphone together. And then next thing you know, Ned's calling her and he's like, hey, like, did you see what like was leaked on Twitter that the CEO of the con is missing? And now like everyone is in a frenzy trying to track him down. And she's like, oh no, like intern guy's going to be so mad at me. Like, why? So you have kind of a confrontation with podcaster dude that's going on while like you're still investigating. And so you're kind of finding out, and then maybe you talk to like Bess or George and they're like, hey, maybe like this was the intention, like he was waiting for a reason to leak it so that now he can get his whole fan base involved. And they're like, now he's like feeding them updates, so like he's tweeting out updates about like his progress in solving this mystery, even though
it would be funny if like Nancy's phone pings every time he tweets and you can like look at his tweets. That would be so funny because
yes.
One of my absolute favorite like phone things to happen is when you find Jesselyn's phone and you're like reading the invertebrates conversation. Like just I can imagine like he's so excited that he's like misspelling crap and is like typing stuff like that, and it would just be amazing.
Yes, I can see like maybe Joe gets really irritated at this dude. Like someone says something really stupid and he just like says something like really ridiculous back. And it's
Right.
like a random Twitter like spin-off where like they just start arguing about something and then like Frank is like, oh my gosh, Joe, like why are you doing this? This is not helping anybody.
Right.
It's just like peak sibling chaos at the meantime.
Yeah, and then Frank is still dressed up like
yes,
like Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, the whole time. And he's just so, I feel like so embarrassing. And like people know him, like maybe he's talking to Nancy and someone's like, hey, Sherlock, Frank, it's so good to see you. Like, I haven't seen you since the last time when you did blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe Nancy is finding out about all of my mortifying nerding out stuff.
Right.
Meanwhile, Ned is like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I wanted to cosplay as Sherlock.
Yeah, Ned is like bouncing up and down, trying to.
Yes.
He's at the gift shop trying to buy like a tweed hat and.
Yes, he's like, this is so cool. You can wear costumes. So this is kind of like, that's kind of the main gameplay. While you're bouncing back and forth with like cosplay dude, whatever, at some point, you ask him a question or you reference something that he said to you earlier, and he's like, what do you mean? Like, I've never said anything like this. Maybe like as the ghost voice. And you're like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so you realize that there's actually two of him. And
oh my gosh.
So the whole time that you were like, oh, this is just some like dude who saw some stuff, that like there were actually two people and you didn't realize that they were not the same person.
I guess because they kept changing costumes.
Yeah, and some of the costumes are full body costumes. So like if you're a ghost or like a Coco Kringle cow, you can't see their face. So then you're like, wait a minute, I think the other person might be the culprit and they might have been feeding me false information the whole time on like a wild goose chase.
Possibly.
Yeah, so they start like investigating. So like Frank and Nancy and Joe are all on the lookout to try and find the duplicate of this cosplay dude. And Joe ends up finding them in like one of the locations, maybe like outside the food truck. And then all of a sudden, like you have like a thwack in classic Joe fashion, and he is KO'd, and also kidnapped.
Oh my gosh!
And then they've gone missing, and I think you'd kind of end with a threatening phone call of some sort where Nancy is like summoned to like if they ever want to see CEO/Joe, who I also would like to say is being hilarious as a hostage, like shouting things in the back, like, "Hey, Nancy, they took my phone. I really tried to hide it from."
As you do.
Yes, and they're like, yes, like the meme of we've got your boyfriend, and she's like, my boyfriend is like right here, and they're like, then who did that just asked me to cut off the corners of the PB&J meme, and they're like, oh my god, you have Joe.
And then you just like literally like you hear a lot, oh, because the kidnapper's had enough, and it's just like stuffed a sock in his mouth.
Yes. And you hear like him like spit it out. He's like, oh, your feet are disgusting.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We need to be like writers for this.
Yes.
Because we have nailed classic Frank and Joe scenarios here.
And Jude is just like so over the top. He's like, if you ever want to see, and like you have this like horrible contrast of like you're never gonna see them again, like evil, like peak evil villain monologue speech, and meanwhile Joe is like, hi, how's it going?
Your feet are so nasty.
Your feet are. Do you mind getting me some Vaseline? This rope is kind of chafing my wrist.
Oh my goodness. Chaos ensued.
Yes, like peak chaos.
Wow. So, along with that course, do you have any potential second chances, like game over sequences that you could see happening?
I mean, I feel like you could do it in so many different ways. Like if you're doing like anything with electricity, like if you connect the wires wrong, or like if you refuse to get the help from podcaster dude, like when you're messing with the electrical stuff, you could like electrocute yourself and have a second chance scene there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know of any funny slogans though for that.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Joe like just annoys the kidnapper enough where he literally just like murders Joe and it's a second chance.
It's like, well, there is a true crime mystery to solve now.
Right.
Yeah, you have that, or like something with like the cooking. If you have like a cooking mini game, I think if like you leave something in like a funnel cake in the fryer for too long and it boils over. Or like you could also have something try and like fall on Nancy at some point, like the classic stage light or something.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'd love her to get some threatening notes too at some point.
Oh, absolutely. That's a necessity if you're doing a kidnapping game.
Yes.
You must have it. So the corporate is obviously like the body double of the cosplayer dude, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How do like you stop them? Does Nancy like just come across where they're keeping Joe and the other dude and are just like busted, or like do you have any ideas of how like she catches them?
So here, well, first off, I gotta give you the big reveal because she's like, I just don't understand, like, who is this? Right. Turns out, again, if I'm gonna be making this game, I'm gonna have my MVP villain. It's just Dwayne Powers.
Oh my god! Of course it is.
Of course it is. Like he sent Bess the free all expense paid VIP trip. He sent Nancy the card requesting for her to speak at this panel, which is why the intern has no recollection of her ever existing on their docket, and that she doesn't exist anywhere on the panels because she was never really invited. He just sent her this and made it look official. And he was hoping to catch Nancy when she came to check in, but when she was late because of traffic, when he grabbed the CEO by accident. And in true Dwayne Powers fashion, everything has spiraled out of control. Yeah. And he has no idea what he's doing, which is how he's managed to take two hostages while also living his dream of being an actor and playing as many different roles as he can as said costume, as body double of the cosplayer do.
So if we're going that route, there has to be an Owen Spader cosplay at some point. There absolutely has to be.
I mean, what if like he just has them all in his room? Like we see like maybe he's part of the outfits, like
Yeah.
his like Mystico the Magnificent costume is like the Owen Spader wig.
Right.
Like so
Yeah.
it's like pieces left over from the old old costumes.
Oh my goodness.
Um yeah, so and I kind of like low key feel like he just is taken way more than he can chew when you have this final confrontation, and like he is still committed to like the big drama speech at the end. But I maybe you switch into like Joe's perspective and like have to like maybe there's a puzzle with like getting out of like the rope or whatever in some way. Like maybe you find like you and the CEO there's like a scene where like he is able to like slide you, like you kind of like maybe slide like something sharp over like a box cutter maybe from his cosplay costumes.
Right.
And so like you have to like figure out how to untie yourself in a certain amount of time or like cut yourself free while he's giving his giant monologue. And then maybe also like dial like Frank from your phone. And so like by the time everyone is dialed, there's literally the CEO, Joe, Nancy, Frank, and like Ned all surrounding him while he's like monologuing about how she's finally been trapped.
And about how he escaped the end of Ransom of the Seven Ships, because that's supposed to still be a mystery.
Yes.
So like I actually I took one of those seaweed balls from Harry Potter and like turned into a shark and flew and started swimming, and that's how I escaped or whatever he was.
Yeah, it's just like so over the top. None of it makes any sense. Like I hand knitted like a palm frond, or I dug myself into the sand and lived as a crab for a month.
Right. And then he talks about like his actual plot that's currently happening, and you're just like, okay, dude, shut up already.
And none of it makes any sense. It's so convoluted, and it's like clearly something went wrong. And he was like, "No, my first stage was to get you here, and then I was gonna embarrass you by making you think that you were like the highlight of this convention, and then you weren't, and then I was gonna kidnap you." And feel the humiliation of being upstaged by someone else. And she's like, dude, like I'm so over this.
Like, I'm so over you.
Yeah. And I low-key would love like at the height, and they're like you realize you're surrounded, and then like maybe they text like intern dude, and intern dude just like KOs him. Like it just like something falls on him or something, or he's like, dude, be quiet. And then it's just like it ends.
Oh my.
Like he just like slaps some handcuffs on him. He's like, you realize like this is like a crime. Like we have handcuffs like everywhere.
And the true crime dude comes and he's like, I knew it was him all along.
Yeah, he releases like a podcast, and it was like how I clearly knew it was Dwayne Powers all along. And he traces an overly like you end with like an excerpt of his podcast where he's like tracing the epic battle of Nancy and Dwayne through the years, and Nancy's like, I'm never gonna escape this. Like this is gonna be my legacy.
Like I did not give you consent to use my life story for your podcast.
Yeah, and she's like, this isn't even my life story. Like what the heck?
Oh my gosh. Cool. So we have witnessed the magical return of Dwayne Powers at MysteryCon. Okay. So now let's create a title. Which I honestly, it has to have MysteryCon in it somewhere.
Okay.
That's an amazing name. I don't know if I don't like kidnapping at MysteryCon. Oh my gosh. Mystery of MysteryCon has too much mysteries in it.
I know.
Gosh. Oh.
What are like other like conventions? There's like panel. There's like pass. I'm trying to think of like other like pun names.
Goodness, this one's hard. Well, mystery word. I'm gonna Google mystery words and see what comes up. Conundrum at mystery.
Oh, I like that.
You like that? Conundrum at
Yeah.
MysteryCon? Okay. So this is Nancy Drew, Conundrum at MysteryCon.
Sure.
So let's design the cover art. What would the cover art look like, do you think?
Ooh. I feel like it'd be kind of, I don't know, like it'd be kind of sunny, maybe tropical if we're thinking like Orlando style convention center vibes with like bright window paneling. Maybe you've got like a badge pass with like something detective-y themed.
One of the black, whatever we just said they were called, one of the black poles that
Stanchions.
yeah, one of the stanchions are in the corner of the cover art, blocking out this door.
And you've got like maybe some silhouettes of like people in the back.
Like maybe behind the door, yeah.
Yeah, like a one like maybe dark silhouette and you don't know what it is.
And then center stage is Frank dressed like Sherlock Holmes. But yeah, definitely I'm thinking it needs to be like the inside of the convention. Yeah. And then lastly, like what's the mood color? What color, like the disc used to have certain colors. Like what color do you think would be the main mood of this?
I feel like either a forest green or like a pale like glass blue. One of the two. Yeah. I just feel like glassy, kind of like business center type color.
Right. Before we stop, it would be super funny. I know they can never do this because of licensing, but if like Dwayne dressed up as like Scooby Doo or Shaggy,
yes.
And he was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna abandon my fan base for a minute and just totally go dress up like Scooby Doo."
Yes. Exactly. There's so many possibilities with mascot dude. Not mascot dude. Cosplay dude that I just love. And I also love the idea also at the ending. Nancy's like, I don't think this is a place I'll ever be returning to. But Ned seemed to really enjoy it, like her letter home or whatever. And it's got like a picture of him and cosplay dude like buddying up. And it's like he was even asked to speak at a panel next year of what it's like to date a super sleuth.
Oh my gosh. That's perfect for like the end letter part. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow. So Maddy has created the chaotic AF but fun and amazing Conundrum at MysteryCon. Maddy, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
A lot of fun. Absolutely. We now definitely know well, I already knew, but the world now again knows your love for Dwayne Powers. And I'm sure if you could make him the corporate every single game, you would. If you could figure out a way to do that.
It's the peak dumbass energy, like theater kid style, like that I just appreciate.
Yeah, which I understand being a theater kid. So
yes, I also I love that whole scene, and it's just so funny. He's so funny to me, like because he's so dumb, but he has so much drama, and he's in it for the aesthetic.
Yeah, and for like the curtain. That's what it's like. His primarily is like setting the stage, and everything is so like theatrically planned out, and all of it. It's like, ugh.
So iconic. Just like him staying tuned for danger. Like, that monologue at the end where he waits to like flip on the lights. No other villain.
No other villain could.
Yeah.
And like however way he managed to rig a contraption in a tree, he did it. And he waited till
Ran is a fever dream for me. But stay tuned for danger.
He's all like, watching where you step wouldn't hurt either. And she's like, oh no. And he's like, oh yes. And then he just like pulls the left.
Yes.
Peak chaotic dumbass energy. Yes. Great. Well, thank you so much, Maddy. This has been an absolute joy. And we will get this posted. And bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks so much. Have a great night.